I am doing this video not because I'm just a YouTuber who looks for stories and gives my take on it, but I'm doing this video because I believe that I have to do it. I have to speak up, I have to speak out. Someone needs to say something because this whole thing is getting out of hand for a certain demographic, a demographic that's being demonized and kicked around so fragrantly on social media and the mainstream media, and no one does a thing about it. No one's saying anything. You get the odd one or two people on social media who speak out, but I feel there should be more of us speaking out about it. Now, it goes without saying that the murder of poor Sarah Everard was just horrendous. No one, no woman, no man should be murdered simply because someone can think that they're easy pickings. But I believe that the murder of Sarah Everard not only lies squarely at the feet of her murderer, the vile Mark Cousins, but I believe there were two more things at play here which allowed him to do so. Now, before I go on to those two things, I just want to say I believe that I ought to stick up for men. Yes, Sarah Everard was killed by a man, but that man wasn't me, and that man does not represent decent men all over the country. You see, the murder of Sarah Everard has turned into this awful tree. Imagine her murder as this tree trunk, and out of this tree trunk a lot of these branches are growing out, and these branches are all blaming everything and everyone bar where the blame should lie. So at the moment you've got the man-hating lesbian feminists on social media and mainstream media. They're blaming men. Any man, just because you're a man, then you ought to shoulder the blame for this, for the poor girl's demise. They are using this incident, this horrible event, as a stick to beat men with, and it's wrong. And listening to the radio this evening, even talk radio, which is kind of conservative right-wing, there was a female presenter on tonight, and she literally just went to town on men. So, me being me, I tried to ring in, but they wouldn't accept my call. And her show was literally a whole guilt trip on men about what happened. Now, believe me or not, folks, there are decent men out there. There are men out there who respect women. There are men out there who, when they find the love of their life, they love her with the intensity of a burning sun. Not every man is a rapist murderer who treats women like shit. Funnily enough, there are some minority cultures and religions in Britain which do treat women like cattle, yet the left do nothing about it. But back to this woman on the radio show, she was basically trying to get men, all men, to feel guilty for this. She put the blame squarely at the feet of all men, and she tried to get male callers in, and she would ask them, how do you think it feels to be a woman? And to that I say, yes, life is hard. Life is hard for everyone. Life isn't easy. And yes, some women do get murdered by awful men. But when awful women kill men, no one puts the blame on all women. No one tries to change the law. No one says a thing. And yes, it's a sad fact that domestic violence swings both ways. And statistically, in some social areas, men don't do as well as women do. For instance, the majority of suicide rates here in Great Britain are committed by men. The majority of soldiers who get sent to war and operational theatres overseas are men. The majority of soldiers who died in Iraq and Afghanistan and Northern Ireland were men. When it comes to divorce proceedings and custody of kids, men basically get shit on. And the majority of homeless people in Great Britain are men. I could go on and on and on. So yes, fair enough, ask men what it's like to be a woman. But I would also ask women what it's like to be a man. But to flog the blame of one murder of a female by some nasty piece of work on all men, I believe is wrong, and I believe people should dig deeper into the circumstances before kicking the shit out of a whole demographic simply because you don't like them. Remember, folks, every time there's an Islamic atrocity, you will have the screeching lefties, these same people. They will quickly scurry online and they will lecture us about the fact that not every Muslim is a terrorist, which is true. Of course, folks, not every Muslim is a homicidal, suicidal bomber who wants to destroy the West. That's not true. But these same idiots will also go online and they will write rubbish like the real victims will be the Muslims who will be the backlash by the right-wing Nazis. Well, that's happening right now. All men are suffering the backlash for this one murder. So why is it okay to demonise my demographic? It's not okay. Now, the two main principles that allowed PC Wayne Couzens to commit his crime are both things which are being pushed by progressiveness. Now, he was able to arrest Sarah Everard because he was a police officer. And to get into the police these days, especially the Met Police in London, you have to be able to tick boxes. Merit doesn't get you the job now, folks. You can be a decent-minded man or woman with good character, with good life experience. And you want to become a police officer because you want to detect and prevent crime, and you want to save property and life. And you have absolutely no qualms whatsoever with tackling violent criminals to the ground should the need arise. That's the kind of people I'd thought that the police would want to recruit, but no, they want box tickers. And I can tell you from experience, folks, when I applied for Hampshire Police after I left the army in 2005, the application form was literally the size and depth of an encyclopedia. And most of the questions asked you to give examples of times in your past jobs of how well you've appeased people. So if you're the kind of person who would rather turn a blind eye for when a member of the ethnic minority, say, commits a crime, just in case you're being called a racist, then being in the police is probably the job for you. And our society is all the worse for it. Now, my point here is PC Wayne Couzens, Sarah Everard's murderer, would have ticked the right progressive woke boxes and be just the kind of policeman, or police person, should I say, that they are looking for. And the police do look after their own, folks. That's a fact. And I can also vouch for this because in my 11 years in the prison service, I dealt with them and they really do look after their own. Because it's also transpired from that trial that PC Wayne Couzens had a history of being a bit of a douchebag. He had actually exposed himself in a fast food restaurant and nothing came of it. And he did something similar as well when he was in a previous police force and nothing came of that. And he ended up as a firearms officer in the Met. And you only have to go online to see that there have been over 700 investigations into the Met Police alone recently because some of the officers have been rather naughty. And out of the 700 or so investigations, there were only 85 convictions. So yes, the police do look after their own. And they looked after Wayne Couzens because they all tick the same boxes. And those boxes are woke progressive boxes. And lastly, the second principle which allowed Wayne Couzens to commit his disgusting crime was the draconian lockdown measures imposed by the government and demanded by the left-wing, howling, screeching, woke Twitter mob online and by other left-wing progressives elsewhere on social media, and the mainstream media, by the way. The left wanted this lockdown. And it happened. So PC Wayne Couzens arrested poor Sarah Everard for breaching the lockdown conditions. And so Wayne Couzens took Sarah Everard away, committed his crime, and that was that. An innocent human life snuffed out because woke progressive policies and political correctness allowed him to do so. Now, you'd think the police, in fact, no, you wouldn't think the police, not the current police in the current political climate and the atmosphere here in the UK. But in a perfect world, I think the police would have a massive overhaul and they would deroot this politically correct cancer which has seeped through them and just decayed them from the inside out and turned them into the cowards that ran away from Black Lives Matter and Antifa mobs in London a few years ago. And yes, indeed, kneel in front of them as well. Are these the kind of police we want? No, it isn't. But in a perfect world, the police would have a massive overhaul. They'd get rid of political correctness and they would recruit the sort of police officer which I described earlier. Big, decent, honourable men and women with a bit about them that commanded respect and dealt with you fairly. That's all we asked for. That's all the police should be. But no, sadly, it's gone completely the wrong way. Because now, thanks to pressure groups and online social media activists, again, the government have bowed down to pressure, and now they're going to be recruiting more female police officers. And that is definitely not the answer, because look at this.
Wrist lock, fail. Pressure point, fail. Arm lock, fail. Foot pursuit, epic fail.
And that's your average female police officer, folks. And there are even rumours going around that there's going to be some sort of indoctrination in schools aimed towards boys and how they are going to blame them and how to make them feel guilty about everything bad that's ever happened to women. Now, even though I agree that kids should be taught in school how to respect each other, sadly, I think that the schools will go over the top because they are the Marxist, West-hating, male-hating types in our schools teaching our children at the moment who will go over the top and just completely take away the character away from them. They won't build them up into proper men and human beings, they will destroy them. They will make them feel less of themselves, and this is not the way to go. Because I think the teachings of morals for kids should start at home. Now, who's to say that PC Wayne Couzens wasn't mollycoddled at home by none other than a woman, his own mother, who stamped his feet when he was little, who got away with everything, and was able to treat his mum like shit until he got it. And this is probably where he came from. Now, had that woman, his own mother, been a proper parent and didn't think the sun shined out of her son's arse, then Sarah Everard might still be alive. I mean, that might not be true, but it's highly likely, isn't it? I mean, we've all seen that little bastard outside who treats other kids like shit, and their mother does absolutely nothing to discipline them. And you just know when they grow up they're going to be a wrong 'un. And that little kid was probably Wayne Couzens 30-odd years ago. Who knows? So wouldn't it be really ironic that the establishment and the press are all blaming the patriarchy, manhood, so-called toxic masculinity, simply being a male person on what happened to Sarah Everard and women like her, when the blame lies at the feet of his own mother, a woman, because she spoilt him as a kid? But there we go, that's just my theory, and that's all it is, a theory. No doubt I'll have the usual mob coming on here calling me a woman hater and a racist for some reason, but there we go. It comes with the territory on YouTube, folks, and it's just an opinion. It's just something I've observed and put it on YouTube for you guys to talk about. But seriously, here in the UK, after the tragic death of Sarah Everard, it is likely that every man and boy for a few years to come will be made to feel guilty for it. And as awful as what happened, I don't think we should. And I certainly don't think we should be demonised for it. And I think the powers that be should really look deeper into things. And that's that. That's my video. Sorry it's a bit of a rant. But please let me know what you think in the comments. Am I right or am I wrong? And also, if you'd like to support my channel, then you can always buy me a beer. Because YouTube have demonetized my channel because I talk about stuff like this and they don't like it. But it's okay for them to put adverts on my videos, on my work, and profit from them. And I think that's wrong. That's why I've done this buy me a beer thing. And that's that. Right then, until my next video, please comment, share, subscribe, and Roger Trout.